Welcome to the Coast Podcast. I'm Emily, a virtual assistant agency owner who left Amazon in 2019 to build my dream.
And I'm Whitney, a freelance writer and communications consultant who never felt at home in a cube farm.
We wanted to learn from people who paved their own ways like we did. So we created this podcast to talk to others who were brave enough to pick a different path. Creatives, entrepreneurs, people doing their careers and their lives their way.
Join us as we make new friends, get inspired, and show you beautiful paths less traveled.
Not every road leads to the coast, but the ones that do come with a great view.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Coast. This week we have Michelle Rankin, who's the owner and head bartender of Tipsy Trailer, a mobile bartending services company in the Seattle area. And we've been to several events that Michelle and her team have been at. I cannot even tell you how amazing her non-alcoholic hot chocolate was. That I was going back up to the trailer and being like, how do you make this? It's amazing. So I'm really excited that she's here with us today to talk about her company and how she's built it over the past couple of years, and for all of us to learn more about Tipsy Trailer. So thank you for being here, Michelle.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So right before we started recording, I was telling you how it seems like you really elevated and made your online presence super vibey and cool. Like you really identified kind of your look and feel of Tipsy Trailer. Was that part of when you started the company, you probably were like, we have to build these trailers, but were you thinking of the whole brand presence at that time too? Because it does seem just so cohesive.
When we started Tipsy, I did not have this direction in mind, to be honest with you. As I've continued it and as it's been growing, I've really learned where my strengths are in it and what is our feel. Where am I comfortable at? What is the vibe that I'm comfortable in? And I think that's what I've been really showing lately is this is who we are. This is what we do. This is what we look like. This is how we are going to be. This is what we'll bring to you. Just kind of getting in our zone of what we're comfortable in. So that's really what I'm trying to present.
When did you start the company? Is it like a pandemic baby or before?
Yeah. So I've bartended on the side since I was 19. I've been doing it on top of my 4-year-old job my whole life. But I was working in the courthouse during COVID, sitting in trials as a clerk. And when things were shutting down, I thought it was the perfect time to go back to school. And my husband said, figure out a way to substitute your income and let's do it. So Tipsy started there. So it was April of 2021 was when we first launched. And I didn't go back to school.
Yeah, I was going to say, my life. Yeah, I was like, what are you doing? And we were so good at this. You don't have to go to school.
So Tipsy took over my life, and now both of my kids are in college. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And when you first started it was just to pay for school? You didn't have a larger plan behind it? Do you now?
Yes. It really was just to put me through school. Bartending has always been something I could do and that I've been good at, and people and things like that. And so I was like, you know what, we could make this happen. I could do this on the weekends, go to school during the week. That was the plan. And then within a year, we went from 1 trailer to 5 trailers, but solid, getting bookings all the way through the next year. It just grew incredibly quick. And we kind of had to play catch up, which I feel like sometimes we're still playing catch up, but we're getting it. So
how did you manage that? I know that you guys are pretty handy, right? You built the first trailer and then you're just husband and I speak for myself because, I'm handy, but my husband is no, you don't do the paint the way that I do the paint. So then I'm you're better off just doing the paint then. We're not going to have divorce court about this. How do you they're so beautiful. How do you visualize them, make them? Are you Joanna? Is he Chip? What's that look like?
So Sean is, he's been in construction his whole life. We call it a big boy job. Sean has a big boy job in the construction world. He does all the renovations on all of our trailers. He's done all of them. So he would come home down the driveway with a trailer that I could not see the vision in. And I was like, what did you bring me? And he would just keep bringing home trailers, and he saw the vision. He's good with woodworking. He does all of it. Luckily, I've got some family that helps with some of the electrical and things like that. But I do the colors. I tell him what I want the vibe to be or what I envision in it, and he kind of brings it to life. So I do a lot of staining. I do a lot of sanding, things like that. But Sean is the builder of the trailers. And then I just kind of bring him the things and say, here, make this fit in there. Stuff like that. And then once that happens and the trailer's complete, then he goes back to a big boy job over here at his office. And I run the decoration, the marketing, the menus, everything like that. I run the actual business portion of it. So we get along well with that. There's not a lot of fights. Every once in a while, I'm like, what are you doing? But, we've both done good. The kids are both out of the house now. So it gives us something to it's given us something to really focus on. And it keeps us busy, and we're happy doing it. So,
yeah. Can you talk to me/us about, like, I keep thinking, I'm like, I don't know what our audience is. I know my mom sometimes on long car rides, and then I'll get random texts of like people listening to the podcast, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know you knew about the podcast. So there is an audience.
Yeah, right.
I love when they contact me, because sometimes you just exist in a vacuum. You're like, I don't know if this is impacting people or affecting them, but
right.
I'm super curious. So a lot of our audience is either entrepreneurs or prospective entrepreneurs, and I'm curious, like, coming from a bartender and having like a big girl job, but before all of this, and then wanting to go back to school, like the operations and logistics of like building this business and then it exploding and keeping up with that. And it sounds like you do everything. How did you put those things in place? Like coming up with, like, we just want to get out there and do our first event and figure out what to charge and how to put up a website and create, I don't know, like, what did that process look like for you?
A lot of research. There was a lot of research put into how to build websites. We build our own website. My family is been really helpful with that. My mom and my stepdad, they've been good at helping me with that. A lot of the photos I just took myself. Like, I like to play around with the camera. I went to Mobile Bev Pros, their yearly camps. It's an education process for a bunch of mobile bars, bartenders, things like that. So I started going to their camps and kind of reading up online through them. A lot of times they supplied our starting contract, things like that, to where I could read up and be like, okay, this needs to happen. I need to make these changes for here. And because I had a background going to school for legal, I was able to kind of see through some things on that and work my way through things. And I think a lot of it was, to be honest with you, it was hit or miss. Marketing. I was not in marketing. I didn't even know what TikTok was before I had Tipsy Trailer. I had no idea. Instagram, I was hit and miss on. I just wasn't into that kind of thing all the time. I think Facebook was it then. So I had my daughter helping me figure out TikTok and Instagram. And to be honest, it was just, like I said, a lot of hit and miss. We had to play around with it a lot. There was some lessons learned the hard way and some we learned pretty easily. So I still learn lessons even now, not planning to have it be this business. I still learn lessons, taxes, things like that. Like, I'm learning as we're going. And, because we grew so quickly, some of those things are hard to play catch up on, but we're making it happen. It's just, it puts that much more on top of the business. Everyone says, oh, a bartender. This business is not just bartending for me. That's the fun part. Serving you your hot chocolate was fun.
You make custom menus.
Yeah.
For custom, beautiful drinks and like different offerings at different price points, I'm sure. And just the way that you think about it is so beautiful, like, and tight. And like, you probably work with, like, if you're doing weddings, the signature drinks and what people want to have at their wedding. Like, is each Tipsy trailer fully stocked, or is it all custom menus?
So they have an option between beer, wine, champagne, a signature drink menu, or like a full bar menu. We usually try to gear people towards signature drinks because full bar tends to be a lot more money and things get wasted. on their part, as far as alcohol, things like that. It keeps your costs a little more in check when you're at signature drinks. But just because you're doing 3 drinks and maybe one of them's a vodka soda, it doesn't have to be boring. And what I am is a little extra in everything. So whether it's edible glitter, whether it's edible, gold flakes along the outside of it, you can make something that seems super boring really fun. And, that's really what I'm about, is visually, I want you to love what you're seeing, no matter if it's a vodka tonic or not. It can be a pretty vodka tonic, and that's just, to me, I think that that's really what people want with a good luxury bar experience. Is it's visual, it's taste, it's all of these things. And that's what I've really tried to incorporate into it. Yes, I can go just pour a vodka tonic, but that's not going to be as cool as a purple glitter vodka tonic, things like that. So that's really what I've tried to do to put us aside from other people, is visually, I really want things to stand out to people as well. Yeah. So as well as taste well, because that is important. So,
and it creates a shareable moment. Like in my world, a lot of like this background that I have in influencer marketing, we would create these dinners full of flowers and backdrops and pretty things, which you do really well with Tipsy, just as a moment on its own, like the trailer. And then the drinks are an added layer of that, where like I'm getting my phone out and I'm putting you on the gram to make sure that like ambassadorship or raving fans and all of that, building community that way through the shareable moment, and also the feeling, because a lot of what you're participating in is some of the biggest moments of people's lives. So they're already going to have this core memory, and then you're adding on top of it with these beautiful details that really do matter to people. And you don't know how many people you're touching at that event who are going to come back and hire you for this or that. So it's funny when we say we're extra, but like the extra goes a long way, even in just like, a karma sense of like, it's going to come back to you in such a great way by adding the glitter, and even just for the feeling that you can give people, which is a gift.
Yeah. I always, one of our, on Instagram and things like that, I always put on there, Tipsy being a little extra like we do, because I know we are. And that's on purpose. I like putting vines on our trailers. I like adding the glitter. I like doing things like that because it makes me stand out, and it makes whoever's looking at us realize that I care about what I'm doing and what it looks like, and what it looks like for them. It's important that you contact me, because you not only know that I'm going to make a good drink for you, but it's also going to look a certain. And that's, a lot of our clientele, that's what they contact me for now, which is great. It means whatever I'm doing is finding my niche, and it's finding my group of people that want us. We're not going to be for everybody. I do a blog that I say, I don't just show up and pour. And that's one of the things that a lot of people will sometimes say, well, I just need someone to pour my beer. That's not going to be me then. And it's not a bad or a good thing. It's just, I always go a little extra. And so I don't just show up and pour. I show up with a whole thing. Like with the whole experience. And, I really like when people reach out to me wanting that. So,
then you're like energetically like on the same level. And that's why it's so funny, because I haven't really been drinking alcohol, kind of been on and off for a while, but mostly like not drinking. So when I was at that event, especially if I'm driving and it's far, I'm just kind of over it. Like as far as the feeling, like it's hard for me to sleep when I have alcohol. So when I was like, you even made the hot chocolate that was non-alcoholic, I felt like a drunk person being like, like cheersing to the bartender, like, what's in this? This is amazing. Like kind of that same energy of like, he could be totally like wasted and raving about this hot chocolate, but it was like those little extra things, and it tasted so good that like even for those of us, and I don't know if like you had this experience when you were pregnant, but I felt very like, nobody cares about me when I'm pregnant. The foods people would make me, the accommodations they made were just kind of lazy and half-assed, and it made me feel like I don't matter very much. Like, you go to a restaurant where there's a tasting menu. I had this like specific example where there was a tuna dish and it was supposed to be uncooked, and then they found out that I was coming and I was pregnant, and they like freaked out, and then they just charred the shit out of it. And so I'm sitting there just like, ugh, like with this dry fish in my belly, big old belly, feeling like, well, this sucks. I was like kind of coming for an experience. I get that I'm like not as easy, but to be able to accommodate everybody at every kind of place and how they're consuming your product is really cool, that everybody can feel special, even when they're like, I'm not of age, or I'm pregnant, or I just really not to drink, or like I have a certain alcohol that I like. I only want the beer, and you're still doing something special with the beer. For my uncle who keeps cold ones in the back of his truck.
We have found that, being a mobile bar doesn't mean you're always serving alcohol. Being a bartender, you're serving a lot of non-alcoholic beverages as a bartender all the time. And what I've been coming up with, and some of the things I work on in like my new shop and things, is a drink that can be both mocktail and cocktail. So the outside of it visually is all going to be the same. And basically all I'm doing is maybe adding some vodka and like a shot of vodka or something on the side when I make the cocktail version. But visually, you're going to have the same look as, with both. And so it is important for you or someone else in that situation who it may be really hard for them to be surrounded by alcohol and they want to feel as a part of things, to not have people questioning them like, oh, why aren't you drinking? What's this? Because theirs is a soda can. I think of all different avenues of it, and I'm going to make that same drink look exactly the same for both people so that they can feel included. In my mind, I'm trying to include them in it. Salt on the rim, edible flowers, things like that. You get one too. You get one. Everybody gets one. Things like that are important. I don't drink very much anymore either. I think because I'm around it all the time, it took some of the fun away from it, but I don't drink very much either anymore. And so I like a good sparkling water or something like that. We'll put some glitter in it. Make it glittery, if you're out somewhere, stuff like that. Like it's fun for me.
Glitter over everything. Yeah. So you glossed over this. I want to go back to your shop. Tell us about your shop.
So our shop is above Uptown Wine in Snohomish, and I have been looking for a place to be able to meet clients in person, to be able to kind of have my area all to myself. I was working from home for a while. I have Highlander cattle. I have 5 dogs. I've got rescue horses. My house is busy. So I needed a space that was just me, to where I could sit one-on-one with clients, talk to them about their menu, go over their concerns, taste signature cocktails that they might have in mind. So I've made myself this little spot. I call it my little speakeasy. Black walls, dim lights, things like that. It's just my style completely. Moody vibe.
Such a vibe. Yeah. And speaking of that, like I was mentioning with your Instagram, are you doing all of that with the pretty, it's so consistent, the branding on it? Is it like filters, or because the videos even, I'm like, look at how beautiful our videos are.
No, I actually, so I have a few people that I've worked with photography wise that have done some of our shoots, obviously with the trailers and things like that. A lot of the drink shots are me. I like to make the cocktails in here in my shop. I have the lighting for it and all these things, and I play around with garnishes and coloring and all these things. And I take the photos, and it's from a camera that Sean got me a couple of years ago because he knew I liked to do it. And so I've just been playing around with it. This is like, I call it my little science, my science lab, because it's literally me playing around with cocktails, taking photos of it, playing with the photo, So a lot of that is me. I give credit where credit is due when it's on there for sure, which there's a lot of great photographers doing a lot of good work for us. So I don't take that away from them. But yes, I do try to do some of it.
You are incredible at it. It's so awesome. Like, I just love seeing it because it feels like you're there at the event. And I know too, like you probably have a lot of weddings, and those, when people are searching for their vendors, they have like, a lot of people have a specific idea in mind, or like they know it when they see it sort of thing. And they're like, I want that vibe. So do you ever turn people away, like couples that you just don't think are your vibe, or any budget, obviously, but where you're just like,
I do. I have told people before, I might not be the best fit for you. When I first started, I didn't turn anybody away. I didn't want to, trying to start up is hard enough. But as we've grown, I've realized that not everybody is going to be my client. I'm not going to fit everyone's budget, which is okay. There is somebody that may fit their budget. I have a lot of friends in the industry that have mobile bars. We've all kind of gamed together and met up and support each other, and I will reference all of them. If I don't feel like somebody is going to be, I will be the best fit for them. Whether it's personality, whether it's price, drink options, whether it's, what they want it to look like. My trailers look a certain way. They've got edge to them. There's a vibe with all of them. A little moody, things like that. Well, other trailers are going to be more garden type variety. Like I'm giving you an example, but there's other trailers that I know of that might work better for your event, and I will send them that way. But just because I'm not going to do a job if it's going to come off like it's not me, or not something that I would feel proud of being able to do, because maybe it's just not my element, something like that. So, when it comes to drinks, I think a lot of people would be okay with our drink portion of it, but like the trailers, like you said in the beginning, they all have a different feel to them. So that's usually what I kind of go off of is, will any of my trailers fit that?
Mm-hmm. What about your process then? Somebody contacts you. Walk us through what the process is like, and you say, let's say they're a good fit. You identify this, the budget works, they're a good fit, their date is available. And then what are your actions until then?
So a lot of times we'll send them the brochure. They contact us. We'll send them a brochure that has all of our pricing and all of their options. It's all of our add-ons. Like we have furniture they can add on. We've got a guest audiobook that they can add on. They can rent glassware from us. We've got a bunch of options that they go through. So I make them go through the brochure and select what they want on there. Same day, we'll get them back a proposal. There's no hidden anything in it. I try to be as obvious as I can on the brochure, saying, look, this fee is here, this gratuity is here. I try to be just upfront, so there's no surprises. And then once the brochure they've made their selections, we've given it to them, they sign, they make their deposit, and then I automatically send them a planning tool, which gives them a timeline. It gives them a bunch of questions that they can fill out slowly as they're planning. As far as like decor theme, drinks that you have in mind, I ask them to upload photos of Pinterest or upload us to their Pinterest account so that we can see what their vision is. And we monitor that. And then probably about 3 to 6 months before their date, we'll set up a tasting schedule. They'll set up their time to come in. I meet them in person. If they're not close to us, then they can do a phone call or Zoom. And we will go through all of everything on that menu planning tool. We're going to go through again to make sure there's no changes. We're going to taste the drinks that they wanted to taste. I forgot to do, when I send out that planning tool, I send a list of drinks that are really popular that we've done and that people love. And so I do give them ideas on it. And most of the time, a lot of people stick to that unless they have one specifically that they've just wanted forever. So they come in for their tasting. I get to meet them in person and go through everything. And part of that goal is making them feel better. I want them to know me and to know, okay, now I have this. My drinks are going to be like this. This is what we have. And 100% great feedback on it so far. So that's been really nice. Part of the shop, add-on. So it's been good. And then I make sure that they have everything into us by 30 days before their event. Their final guest counts, everything. Once that's done, I send them over, and I can do it beforehand too, but a lot of times we want that final count to make sure our numbers are right. We send them over their alcohol shopping list need. We need this many of this, this, and this, all of this. This is your shopping list. Here you go. We use a beverage calculator to determine that. And I do send that beverage calculator with their planning as well. So if they do want to start buying early, they can play around with that calculator. It's just our totals won't be to them until this date in case there was changes in their numbers. We've had people go from 150 to 90. So we don't want that overbuy. Once that's done, we do a final 2-week check with them, make sure that there's no changes. We make sure the timeline's up to date. And then we're set to go. There's not a lot. We bring the ice and everything with us. So by that point, we've got everything together. So a lot of uploading.
Yeah. The awesome amount of information and communication. I mean, that's my love language is over communicating. But you said that they buy the alcohol too. Is that a liability thing?
Yeah. So most mobile bars, you have to have a brick and mortar to have a liquor license. To sell liquor, you have to have a brick and mortar. There's some of those one-offs where, if it's a sponsorship or if there's some kind of, donations, things like that, there's always some one-offs. But for the most part, there's only a couple of people that I know that are mobile that can sell liquor. Most of that's not mobile bars. What we all do is we bring everything but the booze. So it's kind of like my slogan that I like to say, we bring everything but the booze. We'll get your list together. We'll bring all your mixers. We'll bring the garnishes, everything. We'll tell you what booze to grab and you can have it on site for us. So the reason people love that over going to a catering company who makes them buy their liquor is there's an upcharge when you're going through catering for the liquor because it costs them to have that liquor license. So they're going to get paid back for it. With us, you have the freedom to choose whether you want Woodford or if you want Jack.
Yeah.
Like you have the freedom to spend as much money as you want on your liquor. And people like that.
Yeah.
There's no upcharge to it. So they like being able to go to Costco and grab Kirkland vodka rather than only having the option for Tito's, something like that. So it's been really helpful for people. I think that's one of the reasons why the mobile bar industry has grown so much is because they're figuring out they have that option now.
Yeah,
so
that's cool. And it's one of those things that like, because it's not my world, I wouldn't have even thought about it or know to ask. So that's really an awesome thing too, because there are so many logistics and liabilities involved in alcohol in so many ways. I mean, we're dealing with that all the time at the co-working space of like events that come in or people pouring at events and what licenses and things they need for everything.
So you're required no matter what to have, as a bartender, it's a mass license for us as a bartending license. It's an online license that you can get. That's fine. But it's the general liability and the liquor liability licensing that you get caught up in. Those are required at most places. And so a lot of people run, which can get you in trouble, run without it. And so I get a lot of frantic phone calls at right before their date because the venue's asking for the bartender's insurance and they're not insured. So then they have to switch out and find a last minute bartender because they were going to have their Aunt Sally do it for them and she's not insured. Liquor liability and general liability are not super cheap yearly. Legally, that's what we're supposed to have. General liability, liquor liability, and our mass licensing. So we have that, and all of the mobile bars that I know do as well. Those are the requirements that we need to meet for us. And then there's also like public events versus private events. That's different permitting and things along those lines. So it can get really muddy when you get into like certain areas, but in gray areas. Oh my gosh, we have found so many times have multiple bars called and asked the same question and got a different answer. So it's been incredible for us trying to like find the right one consistent answer. And I think we're finally getting there, but
it's been
a process. They knew what to do with us. So I don't think they knew the right answer.
Until you push them. I mean, all government-y stuff is just kind of a pain in my experience as a small business owner. I'm like, even moving my business license from Seattle when we moved to Edmonds was like, it took me 2 years. I was like, I can't figure this out because I needed another endorsement or something. I'm sure you're endorsed up the ass. So all the things that you need to have on your licenses. And here I am, like not even
it's insane.
To figure that out. Yeah. And I'm a smart, capable person.
Yeah. And they try to I feel like there's a lumping of like a food truck with us because we're mobile. And so a lot of times we're really fighting against the grain because we're not food. We're not a food truck. And so the requirements for public events is pretty hard because we aren't food, but yet we're lumped right there. And so like most of the trailers don't have the options that food trucks have because we don't need them and we don't use them. We're a small horse trailer that has, or whatever trailer size they have, So I think now that they know that there's a lot of us, they're starting to put into place a guideline for just us, which is good. I'm ready for that so that we can all follow the same stuff and be on board because every one of us wants to be. I'm not sure which do we follow, that one or this one?
Yeah, seriously. And
they told me this yesterday.
And then they change their mind. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you have part of that, the planning tool that you send over, do you have them upload or provide a floor plan or something of the venue of like where you can park? I don't know why I think of the most random things, but like pods, for example, when we moved, they're like, your driveway is almost too sloped for us, but we can do it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then like I'm thinking my mom, and when my mom listens to this episode, she's gonna be like, I need her at one of my parties, and we have like a long driveway that I think is mostly flat on the bottom, but you would have to figure out where to park.
So venue-wise, there's a lot of walkthroughs that have been done. And now that we've been here a little bit longer, I've been through a lot of venues. And so I kind of know where the right place to go is. If I haven't been there, I do ask that they send me video and photo of where I'm going, where they want me parked at. I have a fact sheet that goes along with the planning tool and the contract itself, saying I need a flat space. You've got to have room for me to turn around, like all of these things. There has been some nightmare parking spots where I don't know how, like, I'm not sure how this is expected for me to get in here, or the serving windows on the wrong side, things like that. So those are all things that are in the contract and in the planning tool so that we know. I've done some Zoom calls with people of them walking through and showing me where. I do make sure of that because the first year I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
So I learned the hard way, mud, weight, and yes, we definitely learned the hard way. There was a lot of fixing up, a lot of unnecessary cleaning, a lot of unnecessary stress because I didn't ask the right questions, and then I started. So it's one of the hard lessons learned.
You don't know what you don't know until you experience it, and then you're like, okay, add that to the questionnaire.
Yeah. Well, and when you first think, oh, mobile bar, that's great. We're just going to pull our trailer and we'll just set it up and start serving. There's so much around that. So much. Like if you have power, is there mud? How far away are you from things? Things like that. Like first year, we didn't think of all of that. And then as you start going through it, you're like, wow, it'd be a lot better if I was right there by that garbage. Things along those lines. So now we really try to help the other mobile bars that are just starting, giving them some of that advice, because we don't want you to learn the hard way if we can help it, because we're all on the same team here. So,
and what's
mud?
Yeah, mud. That like probably became a trigger for you. You're like, oh, I see mud. I can't handle.
Well, and when you're in Washington and it's rain all the time,
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting too, that I was just like, that just floated into my brain as you were talking. I've had a lot of jobs like this too. Like I'm a recovering social media manager. So I have all these things where people are like, just put it on Instagram. They're like, just show up with your trailer, and you have to lead them to water. You're in a more empowered position where you're like, I don't have to take you on as a client. But in my former jobs, it's like people are like, just make a video, as if it's so easy to just make a video or to just show up and park in the mud. Like it's not that big of a deal. So it's really helpful for them to know that they have to be thinking of these things so that they can have a successful event.
Right. Well, that, and it's when you're first starting out, it's about getting out there, and they want to say yes to everything, even though it's impossible. It's almost impossible to do some of the places that people want a trailer put in. You have to have a hand dolly or like an electric dolly to get it there. Those can be really expensive. And as a starting business, those aren't the things that you think about on your buy list all the time. So you think, I'm just going to back my truck up right here. You can't fit your truck in between those two trees where they want the trailer. Like things like that. And so you get there on site, and then it's a mess because they want you here. You can't get there. It's, it really does save them and our industry a lot of bad rep if we can help each other and just give that advice beforehand, because of us that learned the hard way.
And now that you're big and busy, I'm just going to say it like that, how do you manage your time and your workload so that like you can still be a person?
I have gone in and taken off. I've hired people. So I've got staff that's really great and that I trust. They've been with me a couple of years now. I'm bringing on some new ones this year. But I work with people that I trust to be able to take care of it if I can't or if I'm not there. 2, I take off a weekend every month during the busy season for me. and for Sean and for my kids and for whatever we're doing, I try to take that one weekend off. So you have 5 busy weekends, and then I've got a full 8 days off. 5 busy week, just to give myself that break again. And then this year, what I've really tried to do is plan much further ahead. Don't leave everything to last minute for me, buying things in bulk. Our average is 5 weddings a weekend this summer, and I buying bulk rather than running to the store all the time or every day and getting more and running out and things like that. Coolers, like ice, we have an ice bin in our shop that we've just got so that we can not be running to the store for 15 bags of ice every morning for 5 events. Because when it's hot outside, people don't think of this either. When it's hot outside, they cap off how many ice bags you can get.
Oh,
at stores. Yeah. Like when it's hot in July, the stores will say we have a limit of 3 ice bags per person. So I have had Sean going to 5 different stores getting ice bags before. It's a nightmare.
So stressed already.
Nightmare. So we've learned, as we've grown, like, how do I manage my stress better? By planning ahead, knowing all of these things that I didn't know then and planning for it. So it's really helped in this year.
Yeah. And you're like in the empire in just 2+ years. That's so cool.
It's crazy, right? I keep trying to tell my kids, hey guys, come on, mom's got some stuff for you. You guys can take this over and spread your wings. And all of them they're in school. So no, mom. Mia will work with me sometimes, but Logan's in California, so he's not with me working this year. But nobody wants to take over for me.
Maybe they will one day. You never know.
One day.
Kids can be like, come take over my empire. They'd be like, no, we're going to do our own thing.
Mia's in business, like in school right now. And so I'm like, oh, this is perfect, Mia.
She can at least use
a business degree.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
An easy interview. And it's such a cool company too. Like, not a lot of people are sitting in class. Like, my mom owns a mobile bar service company.
Yeah.
What's your, I'm sure you have this on the website, I will not travel beyond X amount of miles for you?
Yeah. We say all over Washington, but we do have a travel fee. So, a lot of people will contact us for farther away, and I'll give them the real answer, which is, this is your travel fee. But then at the same time, I say, we're happy to take this on. We're happy to be a part of your day. But if you don't want the travel fees, I happen to know a really great mobile bar service in your area, closer your way. Here's their contact. So I will refer them to people that are closer, especially since I know that if they have the option that's closer, they might not have known about it. So I'll shoot them their way. And it's hard, especially now because we have multiple trailers leaving town for a further event. When I say further, I'm meaning hours. It's harder because then I've got 3 events over here in Seattle area and 1 way over there. And I'm not here to help the ones over here. I do try to avoid it. And if I do it, I'll do it by itself. Yeah. So if that makes sense, to where I'm not taking on a bunch more that weekend too.
Mm-hmm. Do you pick, are you like, ooh, this one sounds most like the one that I want to be pouring at?
Mm-hmm. When there's a bunch of on the same day? Yeah. No, to be honest, a lot of it's logistical, closer, how can we get there? What bartenders are qualified for what? Because all the bartenders have different levels of skill. And so I will place them where they need to be placed for their skill level for that venue. And then I will go to the ones, if there's someone newer, I will do stuff like that. Some of them I have made connections with brides or the clients, and I will make sure that I'm there in a different way. Just whether they've had us booked for 1.5 years and we've been talking for 1.5 years, which we have a couple of those, I will be at their event, things like that. So I think, but most of it's just what's the best for that event. So,
dang, you must have a lot of spreadsheets.
I do. HoneyBook is actually a lifesaver.
Yeah. A lot of people use that one. I tested it out for my business and it seemed to make the most sense. I think I can see it for yours, but the photographers, it made sense, the process that they have to use. Whereas for me, it was less intuitive for writing. So I was like, I don't know about this one for me. I have a different similar one that is more intuitive, but I love using HoneyBook because my card information is saved for everybody who uses it. So I'm just like, oh, pay. Or the auto pay is great too.
Right.
And you're not chasing money.
Since I had HoneyBook, it has been a lifesaver for me.
Oh yeah. So, I preach admin systems to everybody, like releasing yourself from chasing money and the energy that is involved there, and just all of those logistics, even like the contracts and so much. And it's worth its weight in gold, because like when you do the math behind it, it's like pennies compared to like what you get out of those things. So I think everybody should have some kind of admin system that works for them, that is like this all-in-one type thing. And that's what's awesome about your business. Before we started recording, I was like having this moment of my wedding where we like, our planner said she had bartenders, but then turns out she was this whole other thing that's like a whole other podcast. But she said she had bartenders and she did not. And then at the last minute had to find licensed bartenders, and that is difficult. So for anybody listening here who wants something that's relatively easy and extra, then this is what you need to use, because finding bartenders just on their own isn't always very easy. It's actually a huge pain in the ass, especially if you wait.
Yeah. Licensed, insured, good bartenders are they're hard to find. Yeah. So having that combo there, you can find anyone that's going to say, oh, I'll do it. I'll pop your beers. I'll pour your wine. The reality is we do so much more than that. We keep your guests safe. We're insured. We insure your event under us. Like, we make sure that every one of your guests is trying to get home safe. Like, over serving, stuff like that's a thing. And, having a good bartender is going to be mindful and is going to be good at managing all of that and running your bar smoothly throughout the entire night. And so, it's easy maybe to pour a beer, but not to do all of it. It takes a good person. So, I always suggest to people and remind people that, the cheaper route is not always the better route. You get what you pay for sometimes. And, when you're paying for a mobile bar service and a good bartender, it's for reasons. So,
yeah, every event that you've been at, I just get like, Tipsy Trailers here, because and reputation and consistency and all of that, like, they really matter, especially when it comes to like what you do and the level of safety and liability involved in it.
And it's so crazy because they have safety and things like that. People don't think about some of it. And, I've gotten, I say blasted before because they wanted to self-serve, and you can't. We can't monitor what your guests are drinking if they're pouring themselves. Like, there's all these rules that are around it, not to mention it voids our insurance, things like that. But there's all these rules around it, and, people don't realize that. And so, just for me doing my job, I get blasted sometimes, but yet I'm okay being blasted for doing the right stuff. So,
well, yeah, because at the end of the day, you're the one getting in trouble. And I can imagine your default, you have to be, but also like you have these people where you have to cut them off and you have to be a hard ass about that. And that's got to be interesting. I'm sure you have that conversation with people too, of like, hey, we don't overserve. We don't like allow you to self-serve, and we are going to enforce that boundary.
It's an uncomfortable conversation, but a necessary one. And I do now this year, I've started actually making plans for asking people during our tastings and during our phone conversations, what is your cutoff? What are your thoughts on a cutoff? This is what we do, and we kind of go through it. So I just want that to be clear to people, because it is, I just imagine my kid, your kid, anybody's kid on that road after serving someone, over serving someone. And it's just, it's important.
I'm sure you have some more stories that would not be appropriate to share here, but we can all imagine. I had some cousins that, they snuck behind the bar after those bartenders left early from their job. And it's just unfortunate what people do with alcohol.
Yeah.
But that's why we have you. And
that's my job.
The not so rapid fires I want to ask you. I'm really interested to learn what you're proudest of in your business right now.
I am proudest of, I would say our growth, but I'm just proud of how far we've all come in learning so quickly and doing it well, in my, in my opinion. We've grown, we haven't let go, we haven't slowed down, we've just done nothing but get better and better. And I'm proud of that. It's not something we were expecting. And I'm proud of the way that we've all, me, my husband, and our staff have all taken that on. So there's a few bumps in the road, but we've done good.
It's so cool too to see that you had a plan and then there was a different plan for you and you got to make a choice. And this plan is just so fun. I love seeing you on this path and this plan and that you weren't expecting.
It's such a weird, I tell people all the time, everybody used to hate to see me because I was sitting by a judge. They weren't there for good things for the most part. So they were always not smiling at me. And now when they see me, they're always happy to see the bartender.
That's so
I'm like, now my roles have just switched.
The opposite. That's got to be such a trip.
Yeah, it's fun.
Tell us about a book you read or a podcast you listened to recently that changed the way you're thinking about your life or your business.
Oh my gosh, I'm not even going to lie. I am a true crime junkie. So my podcasts are all true crime. I do a lot of listening when I'm driving to true crime stuff. And to be honest with you, it's safety. I think safety all the time. And so when it comes to what I read and what I watch, I'm always about the girls being safe or the guys behind, when they're behind the bar, when they're leaving, who's around them. I don't know why I shift to that. Maybe it's because of what I was doing before, but
Lifetime movies, Law and Order, SVU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My daughter knows the SVU, like the song. She'll sing it all the time. Yeah. That's honestly, because I'm so into that kind of stuff, like I make sure safety is a huge thing. So
what I don't like though is like my best friend, she texted me months ago and she's not a podcast person. So when she recommended something to me, I'm like, of course I'm going to listen to what you want me to do. Like we're bonding. I want to listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
And she sent me Counterclock. And I was like, all of them are unsolved at the end. I go through these 5 hours and I'm like, it's still a cold case.
I need a resolution. I need a resolution.
Even like Serial got me into podcasts too. And I'm like, what the fuck? All this shit's unsolved. We're not getting anywhere. But I did watch, I don't know if you watched the Netflix documentary on that family that murdered the kids in the Carolinas. Like a bunch of lawyers. And then the timing was great because then his trial was like 2 weeks after I watched it. It was like Netflix.
We're talking about the Paul one, the one that was just like the rich family.
Yeah, Paul was the son who ended up dying too. Yeah. First, it was the girl.
I did watch that documentary.
Yeah, I stayed up late for me. And then the next week he was at his trial and I was like, oh, this is great. This is what I need because I'm like left with these thoughts and questions. Like, obviously the dad did it. And then it's like timely, real news thing happening right now. I went to U of I. So all of the things that are going on with Brian Koberger and his indictment, I mean, I've been sick for months. But what's interesting too is I'm not even as well versed as you, but I was like those whole months when they were trying to find the person, I knew they had someone just based on how they were acting. And they were like, this place is still safe. I knew that they were tracking a very serious lead. So I was proud of myself for that because I was like, okay, these Lifetime movies and Law and Order,
I know. I'm born and raised in Idaho. So U of I is I have a lot of, all my friends went there from high school, like a bunch of stuff like that. I drive through there when I do, because we are licensed in Idaho as well. So I drive through there and do some jobs over in Idaho every once in a while and be with my family. And right after that whole thing happened, I drove through Moscow, like Pullman and like through that whole area on my way down. And I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, where's the house? Because it was right during that time.
Yeah. So, my cousin went to Out Houses there. And so it was we could talk about that forever. I didn't know the Idaho connection makes sense though. So my dad is from Potlatch and grew up in Moscow. Like that's where they moved to the city. And then when I was in high school, I grew up in Olympia and moved to Boise in high school and then went to college at U of I and then moved back here because a lot of my background is here. But both of my parents are farm kids. So my mom's Eastern Washington, my dad's Idaho, and when they met in Cheney, in between those two places, they were like, oh, we get each other. Like very few people get us. Where are you from in Idaho?
So my whole family, besides my mom and a couple of my brothers and stepdad, are all in Boise, Nampa, McCall, whole area. So I was born and raised there. My kids have been there for a long time, and then I moved back. Like I was in Colorado for a while, and then I moved to Seattle for good in 2015 when I met Sean. So I met Sean soon after we moved here. So stayed this way, but my whole family's still down in Idaho. They live on the Boise Bench, and I go down there as much as I can. So,
and that's a place that's exploding too. We've had a few guests that are from Idaho or have lives there, and I'm always bonding with them about that because it's like so different. Whenever, like when I thought we couldn't afford a house here, sometimes I would go on Zillow because they don't have Redfin for Idaho. I was like, right? I could always move back to Idaho, like refreshing what I could get. So funny.
If you ask my family, they're like, no one come back. It's overcrowded now. It's changing.
Yeah, the Californians, that's been a problem for a long time. What would your last meal be?
Oh my gosh, steak and potatoes with mac and cheese.
Just coming off the Idaho conversation, I knew that it would probably be steak and potatoes.
It's steak and potatoes. I love a good steak. I love potatoes. I'll do them whether they're fried potatoes or whether they're baked. Like, I don't like a baked potato. Like, I know that sounds weird, but fried potatoes or like mashed potatoes are one of my favorites. And then mac and cheese. And I can't have a lot of dairy, but if it was my last meal, I would have all of it.
Oh, yeah, totally. And that makes me wonder, too. So if you're at a wedding, they feed you, or do you have to bring your own food?
No. So in our contracts, if we're there for longer than a certain amount of time, would they provide meals for us? The issue is timing. We're so busy behind the bar a lot of the time that we don't have a bunch of time, but catering and couples I've never had an issue. They've always been really good about bringing us food and telling us to go get food and stuff like that. So I'll let my staff sit down. We'll take turns. They can go back, eat. I'll cover the bar, stuff like that.
And there's probably a minimum of 2 of you per bar.
60 and under can go with one. As if it's a trailer, and it's usually just me or Sean or something like that. Anything over 60 requires 2 bartenders. That's for line purposes, just for better service. So, and not to mention just moving things by yourself for a larger crowd. So,
yeah. Well, and you're the most popular person at the whole event.
You're there the whole time. People are just lined up. Yeah. So it's important how it runs. So yeah, I definitely require 2 after 60 people.
That's such important information too. Like all these things I just wouldn't even think to.
All of the little pieces that have to fit in to make it work right.
Yeah. What's the best business purchase you've made in the last 6 months under $100?
Under $100?
And it's your business, so you can break the $100 rule.
Well, I'm going to say the best thing for my business that I've gotten has been, I would say like the handheld dolly, but it was over $100. The one I found actually moves boats, and I found it for $250 on Amazon, and it will pull some of my lighter trailers. That's probably the best purchase.
Yeah, that's cool. And the last question is, what's lighting you up lately?
Lighting me up in good ways or bad ways?
Hey, both.
Lighting me up lately. I think the good thing that's lighting me up lately is, all of the awesome people I've got to work with lately. More doors have opened for us. I've gotten to, kind of branch out into other areas, meet some really cool people. That it really shows me that when you have a good vendor team, all of us, everybody working together, it makes the event so much better and it just makes it awesome. So I've really been happy with the kind of people I've been teaming up with lately and the doors that have opened for us. So that's been a good thing. So some of the things that not so good is, just trying to fight the battle of getting off the stigma of just being a bartender. Like one of my biggest pet peeves is when in any profession for anybody is when, you get referenced as, oh, I just need this. Like it's not important. Like it's not hard work. Like it's something easy that anybody could do. And that's, like I said, not just as a bartender, but anybody's profession. I know I couldn't do your job, and I definitely couldn't do it as good as you do. Same with the person who does my hair or anything else. So I get really worked up sometimes when people don't consider us as something that is like talent or that it takes work to do. Those are things that really start to get me going.
Yeah. And it's your art and your expertise, and you've invested so much time, energy, experience, education in becoming this thing that you're proud of. And it just kind of discredits all of that by just like I was saying earlier, like just make a video.
Yeah. Well, and one of the comments we get sometimes, well, if you don't bring the alcohol, what do you do? What? Mm-hmm. Like it's like a dagger, and it's like, okay, look, and number one, you're not going to be my client. I already know that because you don't see the value in what I bring anyway. So if you're contacting me and you don't see what I bring, then you're contacting the wrong person. Oh, yeah. In my view, and I'll respond back incredibly nice, but it's just like, hey, I want to educate you a little bit on what we do and what we do bring. And this is what it is. And it's this whole list of all these things, which is, safety for your guests. It's the whole atmosphere. It's the whole ambiance of, where your entire party hangs out for most of the night.
Yeah. I get really hyper about that stuff, especially like when they contact you and then they have the nerve to sit there and try to make you sell yourself to them. And don't do that.
Yeah. What do you bring then? You called me, like the bar itself, like the whole bar, like, it's, I mean, I have a hard time sometimes not being, sarcastic back, but I'm professional about it. It's just some of that stuff can really get me going.
I used to have a public, like Calendly, where people could book like a free consult with me. And I realized at one point that I would wake up anxious seeing these new meetings on my calendar that would affect my whole day. And just like you, I have kids, and the amount of time you carve out for these things too, to be there on time and to research them a little bit or read what they wrote in and prepare. And then people would ghost me, or they would make me sell myself to them. When they contacted me, I was like, oh, that's why I'm so anxious. I'm going to go ahead and remove that and then make a very robust contact form where one of the things that I ran into a lot was like, people don't know that I cost money at all. Like, they're like, oh, she's free, because they don't see the value in outsourcing words. Maybe, I don't know. But like you said, those people aren't free. So once I have so few inquiries now, and I love it. It's great.
Because they know the ones that are contacting you are a good lead, and they're good. They know what you're worth, and that's why they're contacting you. Yeah, that's, I marked in all of my stuff this last time, luxury mobile bar service, because having a mobile bar is luxury. It's considered a luxury scenario, which isn't going to be for everybody, which is fine. So I'm not going to be a non-luxury price for people. I'm not going to do all the work and put all this money and effort and time into things and then not have that be something that I can make a living on. And so it's hard because I want people to see the value. And I think that's sometimes why I go extra, just so that they can, like, you guys know that I go extra to make your events good and to make them memorable and to make them a good experience. So hopefully when they do get a hold of me, they know what they're going to get. So
yeah. And they do too. Like, word of mouth at this point is probably so strong for you. And that leads me into our final wrap up, is how can people find you? Where do you want them to find you? The Instagram's beautiful.
Thank you. Instagram is, I mean, you can find us at Tipsy Trailer LLC on Instagram, on Facebook, but the best place to contact me is through www.tipsy-trailer.com. and send us over a contact form, and I will get back to you with a brochure and answer any questions that you may have that way. That's the best way to contact us. A lot of times, we're open during the week. I do a lot of admin work on the weekends. We are, especially right now during busy season, responding Mondays because we are full of weddings that we've been planning for the last year. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm hard to get a hold of as far as like with weddings. And then Monday, I'll hit back up and do a lot of admin work Monday through Thursday. If you haven't heard back from me in between then, it's because I'm at a wedding.
I like doing Mondays on Mondays too. It's just kind of like, you can, especially for me, I can have other things on in the background and kind of just tick through things I have to pay or log or up. And it's kind of a nice ease into the week, especially for you after having a busy weekend like that too.
And you get a lot of inquiries during the weekend from couples and things like that. And so a lot of times, it's automated where I can send you a brochure, which is great. But to have those extra questions answered, Monday's usually the day that I go in, and you might get an email back from me saying, diving into it a little bit more. So
awesome.
That's the best way for us. I mean, you can always come down and say hi if I'm at the shop, but there'll be an open sign on the door from here and come on in. But other than that, definitely website.
Cool. Well, thank you, Michelle. This has been so awesome. I can't wait until the next event that I see you at, and
I know
what you're gonna have.
A little bit.
I haven't really been out at events. I've been managing a lot like in Edmonds, and so I haven't been out and about at other things. And once I come up for air a little bit in the summer, I'm gonna go easier on myself. But yeah, I'll have to follow where you guys are if you're going to public thing.
Yeah. I love it. Well, one to watch out for, I'm super excited about, is we got for Seattle Brides Best of this year for Best Bar, we're nominated, and for Best New Vendor. So we'll find out June 21st. We're going to go to the Seattle Bride Awards, and this year we won't be working them like we did last year. We're actually going to be, hopefully, no matter what, I'm honored to be even in the three of them, but still, hopefully, we'll end up with something really cool. So
that's amazing. Is that something that we can vote in? Like if I have a link, I can put it in the show notes?
You guys already voted us in. So the voting ended a while ago.
Okay.
You guys, it's voted on by our peers, by our couples, by everybody. And there's 3 finalists in all these different categories. And so we got surprised with the Best New Vendor one. And then the Best Bar one, they voted us in. And then now it's just who had the most votes. But they won't announce them until the actual award ceremony, which is in June. So,
wow, that's so exciting.
I'm excited.
I'll get the prayer candles on it. It's my favorite thing.
Thank you. Yeah, do some prayer candles, all that stuff. Either way, like I said, I've been in a category with some really cool people. So no matter what, I'm super honored. But
yeah, it's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. Every time I see your trailers at events, it's like this moment of levity. I'm like, yay, people I know and that I know do a consistently awesome job. And I'm so honored to see this path that you're on and that it all worked out the way that it did. So everybody who's interested in what Michelle's doing, even if you don't need a bartender, check them out on Instagram. It's a whole vibe. And we will see you on the next episode.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.